Guess who got brands talking? Brandlive.co.za.
Good morning to our listeners. You have tuned into the WITEE Chatterbots show, Women in Tech Empowering Everyone. Hashtag us on hashtag WITEE, WITEE. And we are coming to you live from 27 Boxes in Melville, which is quite cool as 27 Boxes was created to enhance the lives of our community. And we're doing this show to do exactly the same. So I'm Carmen Murray, tech visionary, joined by my double trouble, Jessica McAdoo, social media fundi. So this morning we are joined by an industry heavyweight, Jerry Mpufane, and okay, guys, there's quite a big list. So he's the chairman of MNC Saatchi, then of the Johannesburg Group, then he's the jury president of the IRB Bookmark Awards, and he's a judge, Prism Awards, Academic Advisory Board for UJ.
The list is
a
long.
man so na my heart. In this role as chairman, he's responsible for leadership and synergy, exclusive client support, talent support, as well as a transformation and industry initiatives across the 7 group companies. Wow, Jerry, welcome. You've got quite a responsibility on your shoulders.
Yeah, as you're reading that, I'm thinking, geez, I'm just an ad guy, you know?
We love ad guys. As I said, like in Afrikaans, we have this thing, a man so na my heart. Anyway, okay, so before we kick off the interview today, and Jessica's going to kick it all for us, I want to just quickly talk about the headlines this morning. So as I was watching Sky News, I saw that Unilever apparently made an announcement that Unilever wants to warn tech companies that they're possibly going to pull their adverts from unsafe sites. So the firm says it will remove its ads from platforms that are not taking action to fight fake news, terror content, and racism. Nestle, December 27th, did exactly the same. They started a ban with YouTube and Google Display Networks, forcing giant tech companies to respond. As this is a cause very close to the IAB, Jerry, we would like to hear your views and what do you foresee the change on the horizon?
It was a very interesting development and one that excites me immensely. As a big part of my own commentary around what my industry does, I was actually very excited that a big brand such as Unilever on a global scale could share this point of view. Let's take a step back. The advertising industry is a very influential industry. It drives identity, it drives education, it drives awareness. It's one of the most pervasive industries, and it affects and impacts various aspects of life. As a result, it's very influential. So everything we say as advertisers, inclusive of agency and brand, does have a significant influence on society. That is, after all, what we do. You know, we influence behavior, and in a lot of instances, we change behavior.
Correct.
So it's a good thing, and I'm a big believer that business must do good while doing good business, and Unilever is one of those good examples of companies that are very focused on this purpose.
No,
Jerry,
it's nice to see a big brand with taking responsibility.
Yeah, no, it's too true. I just want to say, Jerry, I'm starting to like you more and more. But but just further to Jerry's point is that it's so important, these brands, like if you look at Unilever, they've been doing such a big job in trying to drive purpose, and they're going through all of these lengths to get customers to trust them, and then when they advertise, then these things are happening. So I'm really grateful for brands like Unilever as well as Nestle, and there's a lot of other brands out there that's taking these bold steps. So, and well done, and kudos to the advertising agency.
No, agreed.
Agencies.
I think it's the age of transparency, so it's really, really nice to see that there is this forward thinking going on.
The good news is that Unilever's commentary will be well received by the big companies. I mean, Google itself is positioned, around being the enemy of the bad and a promoter of the good.
Yeah.
The founder of Facebook has come out openly to say, they want to do good and want to do everything they can from a technology point of view to ensure that, only stuff that is for good of humanity, can be prevalent on their platforms.
No, it's fantastic. It's very exciting times. I think with that, there's big changes going on and it's very exciting. I think to kick off the interview, I'd say that I take my hat off to anyone who works on the agency side. The list is long. So working for an agency, it's not for sissies. Paint a picture for us in the life of a person working in this industry, Jerry.
Look, we work very hard, but we also have a lot of fun.
Yes.
A typical day in the life of a person working in an agency, and I'll speak, firsthand about an agency such as ours. We very much co-creators. We operate in the world of ideas. So a typical day involves, agency teams as well as client teams in the same room, discussing, issues, discussing business problems, discussing client ambition, discussing brand ambition. When we've understood that, we spend a lot of time understanding consumers. We like to call it insight, but essentially understanding what makes consumers tick. What is the conversation out there? How do we understand the consumer to the extent that any messaging that we, send out to reach them can appeal and resonate.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we spend a lot of time, creating, coming up with ideas. And that side of things is a whole lot of fun. Obviously, behind all of the fun stuff is some serious work that has to support the ideas.
Yeah. It's really around having collaboration and empathy and understanding, so that and having fun while you're doing that.
Yeah. And I think also, I'm one of those people as well that, I think also by creating and innovating, and the whole ideation process needs to come with a playful side, because you kind of need to become a child again. Yes, you need to do severe, analysis of the problem and understand what you need to do. But once you let the cortex go in the back of your mind and you actually let the play side come out, it's amazing what you can achieve.
Absolutely. A lot of the stuff we do from a process point of view, likely going to be, inside the box, as it were. But ideas is all of the stuff that's outside the box.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've got to be open-minded. You've got to be free.
Yes.
And we often say that, you got to be like a child.
Yes.
And think any constraints and dream.
That's awesome. So dreaming, like, what box? Where's that box?
Outside the box.
Yeah, outside the box. Oh, no, awesome. So Jerry, what is your story? How did you end up becoming the chairman of MC and Saatchi, and what ignited that fire in your belly? Like, how did you know that this was actually your purpose?
Deep question.
Yeah. Did you want to be fire forever?
You do get asked some of these questions, and you have to think about it. I suppose two things for me. I have a love and passion for people.
Yeah.
And those early years as a child and growing up, etc. I could never put it in these words, but I was always interested in this world of ideas. In a very interesting way, now that I can package a story, people and ideas are what my industry is about. And here I am.
We're sitting here making heart signs in love. I think if you take all of that you've got the people and the whole ideation and, the real fire behind it, what would you say, like, with the unprecedented change happening with technology, consumer behavior, corporate structure, What would you say is the biggest challenges agencies are facing in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we should be treating them as challenges. See, whenever technology is spoken about, it's often in the context of the new. If you think about it, at every stage and every phase of human development, technology has always been a factor. When you think in the context of the local industry as a practical example, whenever you say to people, did you know that the first traffic light ever, went live in South Africa? Did you know that
I didn't know that.
the first ATM ever, was developed and launched in South Africa? Did you know that, the concept of prepaid from a cellular perspective as a technology, conceptualized, developed, and produced here. So technology has been a very, integral part of human development throughout the years. And people have, picked up technology, they've lived with it, and by the time it's pervasive, people forget that it was something new. So I never want to think about technology in the context of a challenge. Because, in truth, technology has been a big part of, human development throughout the years.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. Just to add to that point, like, yes, 100%, like some of the biggest problems that we've solved, solving African problems was using or developing our own homeborn technologies, which is phenomenal. I do think that, in terms of technology, it's Alvin Toffler explains it best. He says, like, an element of future shock. There's so much change happening around us in terms of technology. And I think a lot of marketers feel that, the future's coming towards them, but it's not something to be afraid of. It's something to embrace. It's just, don't be vulnerable. Don't ignore technology, because it's going to solve many human problems.
And
here's what we need to recognize. Innate in human nature, every human being has this need for connectedness. So that's not anything new. That's who we are as human beings.
Correct.
All technology does is enhance that, connectedness.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that brings me to my next question is, so we're seeing the rise of the connected individual, which is calling for a new breed of marketers. Now, the connected marketer is actually something that I'm very passionate about, actually bringing it to South Africa. And this is a marketer that creates seamless experiences in a less linear way. So 4 human dimensions: the physical, the digital, emotional, and sensorial. So in comparison to the Amazons, the Starbucks, the Googles, the Ubers, how far do you think we have to go in able to, to create what's being created on the global platforms using things like AI, IoT, 360 mobile, programmatic, proposition development, etc.?
Yeah. Look, what we've learned throughout time, and I imagine and I suppose our industry is at the forefront of this from a perspective of communication. What we've learned is that any new forms of technologies do not exactly replace the stuff of old. What we learn is that any new tricks, any new forms of technology are actually complementary to the existing. If you take the subject of television as a touch point as a good example, depending on who you speak to, you often hear big talk about the end of television.
Yes.
No, we're not experiencing the end of television.
Everything
what
bad.
we've seen is other forms of media touch points being complementary to television.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of the stuff that's spoken about in the social media as a good example is stuff that happened first on television.
Yes.
Yeah.
So any one of these new additional technologies, inclusive of AI, which is a very exciting thing happening, will add to the mix we currently have, complement the mix we currently have, and I think for the better.
Absolutely. Sorry, I just want to add one thing. My mom and I had this conversation. So she said to me, like, when TV came out when she was a young girl, she said, like, they used to go to the movie houses and they used to go to drive-ins and so forth. And all of a sudden, TV came out and everybody stayed home and everybody was going, oh my gosh, the industry is going to die. Shops started closing, drive-ins started closing. And it never died down in the long run. It just evolved.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And it was just this fear of change, which we see all the time when new things come. We don't always know how to embrace it. But I totally agree that everything is complementary. And if you look at TV, for example, my husband works in broadcasting. And I can tell you now, they are the future. I mean, if you look at how they're evolving in terms of paid TV and, if you look at the Netflixes of this world and how they're evolving, it's just the way consumers are consuming is changing, but it's still there. We still need to be
Absolutely.
entertained.
Yeah, exactly. My mom and dad, they came here in the 80s from the UK.
Yes.
And they said that there was only like 1 or 2 hours of English TV a day.
Oh, really?
And if I compare that story to my 9-year-old, like she doesn't move. It's like she's on the goggle box. She can't concentrate. There is something on a screen. Doesn't matter what she watches it off, but she's watching.
Oh, my goodness.
Look, the only interesting bit where we're even having to work harder is that the multiplicity of media have essentially just meant that people have lesser and lesser time per medium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a complexity we've got to manage. But we're not dealing with an environment where the one medium takes over all else. What we're experiencing is that they're actually complementary, like I said.
Connected. Integrated. Anyway, so we have to quickly hop out for a ad. So we'll catch you on the flip side in a few seconds.
Absolutely.
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
Brand Live.
No doubt.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
The WITEE Chatterbots. Join myself, Carmen Murray, and my double trouble, Jessica McIndoe, with our big personalities, and we will present you with an insightful yet fun show.
We will feature interviews with industry heavyweights and unpack everything from new technologies, marketing trends, and case studies to empower you to be ahead of the curve.
Brand Live.
Join us on this exciting journey every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock and start a conversation on hashtag WITEE Show.
Hashtag WITEE Show.
Thank you.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.
Good morning, everybody. If you haven't tuned in, this is hashtag WITEE Chatterbot Show, and we are talking to Jerry. And Jerry is giving us so much wealth of insight today. So we just we're talking about the connected marketer and integrating your mediums, and literally just I'm looking at every medium as something more holistic rather than as a separate medium, and how to enhance your experiences for your customer as a connected individual. Now, Jess, maybe you had a question that you wanted to ask Jerry.
Yeah. So Jerry, I know we said about like with business objectives and being connected and all the different devices and looking at everything holistically. If you had a magic wand, what are some of the things that you wished you could achieve in our industry?
Sure, a whole lot, but I'll give you one.
Yay!
Okay, cool.
I'll give you one. Look, we're in the industry of storytellers.
Yes.
And if there is what's considered to be the number one skill, it is storytelling. If there's a thing one would want to achieve, is to make sure that our industry is flooded with storytellers. Whether you want to call them, copywriters or whatever, we're all storytellers.
Yeah.
That's how we transmit brand messages to consumers. That's what that's the reason clients come to us. Developing more and more storytellers, bringing them into the industry. It doesn't matter whether they come from an advertising school, whether they come, from writing drama in some village, whether they come from an oral environment of storytelling. We want those storytellers to enter our industry, and that is the one ambition. And if we'd achieved, the recruitment of tons and tons of those types of people, we would have done very well.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's very close to my heart as well. Like this whole storytelling thing there's still, if you go all the way back, people buy from people. It's about the story. They buy into that story.
And being authentic.
Yeah.
Cool. So just very quickly. So Cannes Lions, I think in 2016, they tried to understand like why is always the same brands the same countries always winning. I think it was New Zealand, Australia, and they wanted to do a little bit of an exercise. They did some data science and they tried to understand why they are winning all the time. And one of the most important insights came out, and it was that they found that companies and agencies that work together for longer than 10 years and those who collaborate and working together hand in hand are the ones that achieve the most successful campaigns and awards in this industry. What is your view on this?
It is central to what it is we do. I mentioned earlier that we're the type of agency that's very collaborative. We're not believers in driving to the client's office, picking up a brief on one pager, coming here and try to solve a problem. We believe, and our experience has taught us that the best ideas, the best campaigns, the best solution that delivers business results, that drives business results, comes from co-creation between agency and client. How do you achieve that? You got to build very strong relationships between agencies and clients. You want consistency of team on both agency and client side. Over time, you are able to deliver the success as we've seen with the results coming out of the likes of the Cannes Festival.
Yeah.
So they've done a good thing because they've tabled the facts, but essentially confirming something we've always known forever, which is that agency-client relationships, and especially the aspect of longevity, actually drives the best and delivers the best campaigns, ultimately driving the best business result.
100%.
Awesome. Okay, so you really got your finger on the pulse in terms of like world-class work, right? So how do we as South Africans feature in comparison to other countries? Where do you think we could improve?
South African agencies have throughout the years, the last 20, the last 30 years, the last 40 years of us participating in any one of the international festivals, South Africa has always punched above our weight. If you consider in the context of talent and human capital, South Africa's population is a fraction of a number of the major markets in the world. In spite of that, we've been able to produce campaigns that have won across a variety of international festivals. So we've done very well, and we should be proud. What can we improve? Where can we learn? And what we should be aiming for? In my view, two things. The first is we have to excel in this modern and digital environment. If you consider that the majority of South Africans, their first taste of the digital world and the internet, etc., is via their cell phone. We've got to do a better job at delivering campaigns that live on the cell phone, that can be transmitted via cell phone. There's the one thing we've got to excel at: digital, and mostly in this mobile space.
Awesome.
The second thing I think we should aim to excel at is this notion of creative ideas for a better world.
Yes.
If you consider the influence of our sector in society, there's a whole lot more we can do to make our world a better place, and more so on the African continent, inclusive of South Africa. and I think we should be excelling in that space.
Yeah, I just got goosebumps.
Amazing.
I'm feeling all proud.
Great feedback. Okay, final question, which we have to answer very quickly if we can, because we still want to fit in the 60-second game. But anyway, you have gone through the judging process for the IAB bookmarks, which is the best event of the year, and we're going to celebrate so much amazing work done in this industry. What are some of the trends you are seeing in this year's submissions, if you're allowed to share that, in comparison to last year's?
Yeah, I can. It was fantastic to see that, a lot more clients together with their agencies are experimenting rather in this sort of new age, cutting edge aspect of technology. Is every campaign that we've seen, vested and playing in tech? Absolutely and obviously, because this is a Bookmarks Awards. But it was interesting to see campaigns playing in sort of the bot space, campaigns playing in sort of the AI space. So it's good to see that brands are open-minded, agencies are driving clients towards these new forms of technology, and that's exciting.
No, that is exciting. Then it's nice when brands will work with agencies to experiment a little bit to get something new and exciting.
And we are bots.
Yeah.
We are chatterbots.
Yeah, that's where it came from.
WITEE Chatterbots.
Yeah, but it would take AI a long term to learn us. Oh, no. Okay, so thanks very much, Jerry. We've come to my favourite time of the show, where we get to know the real Jerry. I've worked very hard on these 10 questions. We have had a 10 out of 10. Mostly people get 7 out of 10. So you have to answer as quickly as possible. You've only got 1 minute. So are you ready? No pressure. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. If peanut butter wasn't called peanut butter, what would it be called? Go, quick. Funniest ever client request you've had?
Ooh, pass.
Oh my goodness. In 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for? Come on, Jerry!
Payphone.
Okay. If you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you'd been arrested for?
Stealing.
The most ridiculous fact you know?
That tech can come out of that continent.
Best Wi-Fi name you've seen?
Wonderland.
What secret conspiracy would you like to start? 3, 2, 1. Oh my goodness!
You've done well. How many? 7? 6.5.
No, I don't know. I'll give 5. But yeah.
Jeez, I didn't do well there.
Don't worry, mine was 4 out of 10, so don't feel bad.
No.
Awesome. Well, Jerry, we just want to thank you for your time. We know you're a very busy man, and I look forward to seeing you at the IAB Summit this year. And thank you for all your valuable insight. I'm Carmen Murray from the WITEE Chatterbot Show.
And I'm Jessica McIndoe, and we're signing out. See you next Tuesday.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.